In a solar system of 8 planets, there is just one Earth, our home where we effortlessly exist from the moment of birth. This planet was made perfect through universal law's design. Each of Earth's systems emerged and stabilized in due time. Everything here has purpose, and each purpose a living thing. All things are interconnected by webs of DNA string. Remove any strand of the web and it may weaken or fall, especially life's productive base, whose work sustains us all. The universe, encompassing all matter, energy, place, the infinitely vast, unfathomable expanse of space. It's difficult to comprehend. We have nothing to relate. Just glimpsing the immeasurable will yield a humble state. The fabric of the universe is elaborately divine, having a fractaled, three-dimensional honeycomb design. Infinite matter and energy move in an endless race. Mass energy warps space-time to hold revolutions in place. Composing the fabric is loosely knit galaxy clusters, radiant from the billions and trillions of stars they muster. From far away, these units appear as a single object. Closer distance reveals many large bodies that don't connect. Each body is a collective unit called a galaxy, where hundreds of billions of stars attract through their gravity. Earth is veiled within a galaxy that's called the Milky Way. The motion of its stars make a luminous spiral display. From Earth, the Milky Way can be seen glowing faintly at night. In remotely dark places, you'll find the white ribbons dim light. There's no disconnect. Our solar system's one of the pieces of this gigantic pinwheel where the spinning never ceases. This cloud of billions of stars rotates millions of mini swirls, like our solar system that is orbiting the sun in whirls. With a pace so rapid and constant that we can't even feel, our sun is burning 2/3 out on an arm of this pinwheel. Still, the Milky Way's enormous size creates the duration of 240 million years per full rotation. Our minds can't grasp 100 billion stars in the Milky Way. Counting just 1% of them would take our lifetime away. Many of the Milky Way stars hold planets in their orbit. Our solar system, therefore, is not that rare an exhibit. The solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. To the sun, 99% of the matter was bestowed. Less than 1% composes other objects like planets, which orbit the sun because their forward motion it deflects. The solar system sustained by the energy of the sun, a star of burning gas undergoing nuclear fusion. The smallest division of a pure substance is an atom. Atoms are composed of particles they get properties from. An atom center, called the nucleus, is densely compact, with neutral neutrons and positive protons which will attract their negative electrons to highly probable orbits, where they fly around endlessly like fruit flies around peach pits. Only nuclear reactions change an atom's nucleus, like fusion forging new elements in the solar furnace. The sun's core forms helium atoms by fusing hydrogen. These light elements emit energy during production. 500 million tons a second is the sun's fusion pace. 1% of this mass, 5 million tons, radiates through space. Blue stars are hot and red stars are cool. Our sun is in the middle. Also, it's the perfect size, not too big or too little. Our sun of average size and heat is just what our planet requires, and Earth's in the right position not to be scorched by its fires. Earth's a wobbling top in the 3rd position from the sun. Its revolution location is what dictates the season. Earth's tilt is 23 degrees on the axis it rotates, causing daylight to vary according to seasonal rates. Formed the same time from the same matter as the 7 others, Earth would have the most ideal assemblage of life's factors. Early Earth was uninhabitable for 1 billion years. At this stage, it resembled nothing of how it now appears. It lacked the vital components of living environments. The oceans had yet to form, and the air was toxic and dense. Earth collided with space debris. A fragment became the moon. This space rock contained ice, and across the planet it was strewn. The Earth was molten, so 1 billion years to cool was a must. Slowly, the top layer would solidify into a crust. Cooling the Earth resulted in another important change. It became a water planet in this low temperature range. Accumulating liquid water upgraded Earth's status. In order to start life here, this was critically momentous. Water behaves miraculously and has rules of its own. Some properties don't align with chemistry rules that are known. The cause is simple, but the results are exquisite and beyond. All life relies on the weak and transient hydrogen bond. Water molecules form from just hydrogen and oxygen. They pair up to share outer electrons, their others hidden. Oxygen is the one that truly benefits from this pair. It's the substance with the greater need, so sharing won't be fair. The shared electrons will stay mostly on the oxygen end. This electron surplus makes oxygen seem negative then. Called polar, this configuration is where the power lies, like a magnet that has both positive and negative sides. Charges make water attract to itself and other compounds. Bonding between water molecules explains its broken bounds. Water attracts to itself to form droplets or a puddle. Overexposed to this occurrence, we ignore this huddle. Yet it's important for many things. It's called surface tension. It's how water flows up trees through capillary action. Water's most remarkable features are all involving heat. Heat describes particle speed that's microscopically discrete. High freeze and boiling points are one uncommon property. Water's light and should boil at a low negative degree. Hydrogen bonds require more energy to separate. This extra energy is what makes the temperature elevate. What this means is that water exists on Earth in all three states: solid ice, liquid water, and gas when it evaporates. On Earth, all three forms are needed to moderate the climate. Ocean water disperses the equator's heat within limit. Evaporation takes in heat, so it's a cooling process, and for ice to form, water must give off heat that's in excess. Most compounds will be a more compact size in their solid form. Water expands as it freezes and doesn't follow the norm. This makes ice float on water, another essential life key, as it allows the water beneath to be open and free. Hydrogen bonds did life in the ocean another service, causing water to heat and cool so slow, cells don't notice. Large bodies of water like the Earth's oceans, seas, lakes, or bays don't fluctuate in temperature with the cycles of the day. There was more than 1 billion years with no signs of life on Earth. Finally, in the amino acid-rich seas, life was birthed. Simple bacteria that thrived without oxygen came first. This first life produced valuable substances, and Earth was nursed. Some atmospheric gases deplete as others would fill, like oxygen produced by cells that possess chlorophyll. These vital organisms branch from the bacteria tree, although they're misleadingly referred to as blue-green algae. More aptly named cyanobacteria, they're recognized for the oxygen they emit as they photosynthesize. Single-celled organisms made up 87% of life's history 3 billion years ago to the present. Continents appeared, result of a new, buoyant type of rock, but there were no systems to support life on these barren blocks. Excess oxygen caused iron to settle from the water. This iron catastrophe brought early life forms disaster. Unable to breathe the rising oxygen, they would smother. But one group's misfortune often means success for another. Around this time, inside the cell, a new structure had emerged. They may be a commensal organism cells never purged. Called mitochondria, they produce efficient energy by combusting, which is burning glucose into ATP. This is the only type of fuel cells can use directly. It's made elsewhere, but mitochondria do it correctly. Oxygen is required for a combustion reaction, insufficient to this point, now abundant in the ocean. Billions of years of single-celled photosynthesizers' work resulted in other ecologically sustaining perks. Air was filled to modern oxygen levels in record pace. They balanced the pH of sea between acid and base. The production from these organisms paved the way for more cells, more species, more variations for life to explore. As ocean life flourished, the ozone layer was just forming. It offered the Earth protection from solar rays and storming. The biosphere is the equivalent of our planet's skin. Many systems maintain this thin layer of life Earth's wrapped in. Elements, like carbon, cycle through life and return the same. Water is renewed and made pure through evaporation and rain. The cells of plants and animals keep a very strict order. This starts by maintaining a semi-permeable border. Only a few essentials will gain access into this cell. They enter through protein gates to be contained in a thin shell. Those locked out of the cell can use inside partners to relay messages to the cell that may be essential to convey. Cells are abuzz with hundreds of tasks at lightning speed. Specialized structures provide the organization they need. Cells orchestrate their symphony of microscopic movements, with instructions coded and stored in a central compartment. Like the center of an atom, it's called the nucleus, and it contains structures that enable cells to be complex. Inside, possible life stories are written in DNA, outlining form and function is just part of what it has to say. Coiled tightly in chromosomes, DNA composes genes, which are influencing and influenced by life's every scene. Environmental stresses turn on and off built-in switches, resulting in chemical change, disease, and other glitches. Outside the nucleus, jobs are performed by the organelles. Like organs, each structure has specific duties for the cell. There are organelles for reproduction and respiration, digestion, elimination, storage, and transportation. Organelles can work together even though they specialize. Some run miniature factories where proteins are synthesized. Plant and animal cells use energy for cell maintenance, yet they are very different in life's diverse circumstance. The energy plants are harvesting from the light of the sun is the same source of energy animal cells need to run. Animal cells can't tap into this energy directly. It's passed instead if dietary needs are met correctly. Plants store energy, making an efficient source to ingest, while consuming large consumers causes energy digress. The higher on the food chain you go, the more energy is lost. When raising livestock, exorbitant resources they'll exhaust. Life would become multicellular as it diversified, bringing a new set of demands while the old ones still applied. Cells must be specialized, resulting in slight variation, and maintain their useful existence through cell replication. They possess a full set of chromosomes to reduce issues. Cells can be grouped through a weak chemical bond to make tissues. Tissues make up all parts of a body, including the blood, which is being passed through the chambers of a heart that thuds. Organs are an organized tissue system, like the heart. Organs perform a function. This can be a whole task or just part. The heart is simply a pump forcing the blood to circulate. The point is to distribute the oxygen we respirate. The heart's reliant upon other organs like gills or lungs. Organs join organ systems in a chain reaction they've strung. Often, organs are contained in central body cavities, serving the whole body, like hearts pumping to the extremities. Internal or external skeletons lend rigid structure, absorbing the force of movement so nothing vital ruptures. Organisms with vast organ systems have trillions of cells, while single-celled organisms only have their organelles. Energy is expended to maintain an organized state. Like a clean house will become dirty again at a quick rate. All things in this world will degrade to chaos and disorder. Nothing lasts forever, not life, streams, mountains, brick, or mortar. Called entropy, it increases and turns the ordered random. In a large enough time frame, the whole universe is victim. Crumble, rust, or die, entropy's why everything has to end. It's an inevitability, a law that will not bend. Cells will push back entropy with a process called mitosis. One large cell becomes two in a four-step metamorphosis. Mitosis forms a trillion-celled baby from fertilized egg, and throughout life maintains cells too innumerable to peg. Mitosis doesn't go on forever, it declines with age, and health will speed or slow this process to give lifespan a range. Mitosis slows, cells aren't replaced, bodies start to sag and lag. The building blocks of tissues and organs feel entropy's drag. Eventually it's too much and one or more organs gives out. Death's a necessary part of nature, life's predestined route. Bodies return to the earth to support life in its next form. Perhaps it will be a tree that grows to weather many storms. 650 million years ago, as temperatures fall, the earth would be covered in ice like a gigantic snowball. 70% of plants did not survive this great freezing. They have no form of protection from the temperatures easing. The heat from plate tectonics eventually began the thaw. Life on earth rebounds for the most prolific era of all. Through 100 million years, the Paleozoic era spans. Life builds until periodic mass extinctions change the plans. 500 million years ago, life explodes in the Cambrian, with unmatched diversity never seen before or again. The DNA molecule inspires biodiversity through the infinite combination of its assembly. Invertebrates would continue their diversification, while vertebrates first made their appearance in the Ordovician. Ocean rock was endlessly shuttling empty blocks of land, until plants finally broke the few billion-year barren span. Low-level plants were the first to satisfy dry land's demands. In the Devonian, the reign of plants rapidly expands. From this point, plants were assisted by insects that are loyal. Living plants produce oxygen, and dead plants enrich the soil. Insects keep the soil from rotting and becoming inert. They produce nutrients from dead matter and loosen the dirt. Insects don't work for free. Their relation is symbiotic. From plants, they gain food and shelter from a world that's chaotic. The inanimate compounds of Earth, life borrows and returns, to be utilized and abandoned again in this pattern. The Carboniferous was the next dynamic period. Here, infiltration of animals onto land was rapid. It was no simple task for vertebrates to move onto land. It required new animals so the kingdom would expand. Amphibians are still dependently tied to the water. What they require from land's little more than a squatter. Water's still the location for the most important events, like reproduction and their period of development. As adults, amphibians are able to breathe land's dry air through skin that is covered in mucus that dried out if left bare. Land's lack of moisture creates issues of dryness and support. Water supports more weight than air, but big bones aren't a resort. Bones instead must be sturdy yet stay light for mobility. A rigid honeycomb matrix gave bones this ability. Reptiles emerged and were first to live their whole lives on land. Thick skin, sharp teeth, and claws is the equipment their life demands. Amniotic eggs kept fetuses in a fluid-filled sac, where shells protect them from the climate and predators' attack. Cycling climate change and extinction soon favored forests, quiet conifers growing without squirrels, owls, or birds' nests. Instead, giant insects buzz and creep in a world they overrun. This period's best remembered for the way it was undone. The worst mass extinction on Earth was here in the Permian. 70% loss of land life and 90% in the ocean. Name the PT boundary for the two periods it divides. Those who made it to the Triassic shared what the Earth provides. The Mesozoic era was 200 million years long. When fossils record life, knowledge of existence is prolonged. Whether it's an extinct coral or a T-Rex mandible, human fascination with fossils is understandable. Fossils are the only direct way to view life so ancient, giving clues about organisms' lives and environment. It's difficult to be fossilized. There are many conditions. Normal decomposition must be knocked out of commission. It must occur before scavenging or other destruction, and it helps if the body's of a bone or shell construction. It happens to organisms who have rapid burial. Those encased in ice, tar, or amber have the most to reveal. Their preserved features help to identify their lineage, which is difficult when they don't match a living heritage. A fossil's age is determined by its atom's decay rate, which is the method used to get a radiometric date. The Mesozoic had 3 periods. Triassic was first. The reptiles had moved onto land and proved to be well-versed. Early dinosaurs appeared at the end of the Triassic. 200 million years ago, they ruled in the Jurassic. The Jurassic period experienced climate warming, beneficial as the reign of dinosaurs began storming. Teeth flashing in dark, dense jungles from ferocious carnivores, matched by thundering appetites of enormous herbivores. Dinosaurs inhabited paradise. Earth was a greenhouse, encouraged by heat and air that was carbon dioxide doused. Plants grew to outrageous sizes, organisms would grow too, becoming heavier and taller than any in our zoos. The Cretaceous was the Mesozoic's longest period. 80 million years added new life forms to the myriad. Color was introduced into a world that was mostly green. This is when plants that hold seeds in a flower came on the scene. A flower turns to fruit, which will offer extra protection, except for the animals who make fruit their meal selection. Mammals existed in the Cretaceous alongside T-Rex. These small creatures would endure because hiding was their reflex. They survived mass extinction 65 million years ago. India's volcano blew and a bolide hit Mexico. Over 85% of land and ocean life perished, including the mighty dinosaurs, whose lineage vanished. The mass extinction created a boundary called the KT. Those who made it through would repopulate the Earth steadily. Mammals recovered 2 million years after this extinction. They expanded, improved, and went through diversification. The placenta is now their main mode of fetal development, long gestation in the mother while receiving nourishment. The placenta then signals production at mammary glands, so mammal mothers can meet their newborns' nutrition demands. We're now part of the Cenozoic era where mammals reign. They have complex body systems, a powerful heart and brain. 40 million years ago, mammals were recognizable. Some had hooves and became prey to predators more sizable. 12 million years ago, grasslands grew in continent centers. 6 million years later, bipedal hominids would enter. These events were both environment-driven adaptation, a driving force of evolution and species creation. Visually, grasslands are like walls compared to jungle's trees, so a more upright view allows one to scan and sniff the breeze. 2.5 million years ago, pre-humans made knife blades. Construction of tools continued in what's known as the Stone Age. They protected their bodies with fur and leather attire. They'd spread out of Africa and learn how to control fire. Every inch of the whole earth, no matter what the condition, is habitat to organisms ingrained with a mission. Many fight to survive while striving to carry their genes on, thus ensuring their ancestral lineage before they're gone. What a myriad of miracles life evolution produced. Influx, change, dynasties risen and reduced. Then a small animal with a big brain made it to the top. Equipped with reason, insight, and logic, they were hard to stop. Current fossil evidence shows Homo sapien appears and steadily reproduced over 200,000 years. They were impeded by times of volcanism and gases, which devastated and reduced Homo sapiens' masses. The Earth slowly recovered, becoming bountiful again. Homo sapiens have withstood the climate fluctuation. At an opportune time, humans had crossed the Bering Land Bridge. The continents of the Americas was reached by this ridge. They constructed musical instruments like mammoth tusk flutes and created thick braided ropes from tying grasses like jutes. Even with these ancient peoples, DNA is our junction. Proteins by the million dictate bodily form and function. This expansive code is best examined in segments called genes. Genes code for making RNA, which assembles our proteins. The Human Genome Project's an unprecedented event. DNA shows humans match 99.99%. That would still leave 3 million places where our code differs. These millions of points explain why humans are a bit diverse. With its elaborate coiling, folding, and crumpling plan, each cell's DNA would unravel into a 6-foot span. Ancient ancestors from over 20,000 years ago had not developed the technology to reap or sow. Generations would wander behind migrating herds of prey, a vulnerable existence that's in question from day to day. They possessed limited knowledge and used low technology, their small stature an artifact of their genealogy. From the wilderness, these people would have little protection, under the glow of the sun or the dimmer moon's reflection, a time when even a small, simple wound could cause infection, a time of unadulterated natural selection. During this time period when sporadic tribes roamed the earth, population was just in the millions and death equaled birth. Soon, agriculture would develop and then it quickly spread, being more successful in the amount of people it fed. Clans of hunters would become sedentary to grow. They would select and settle lands nearest to the water's flow. It was not only the crops and the settlements that had grew, but the carrying capacity and the population too. They created new tools and methods to increase their crop yields, and the shift would allow for many workers to leave the fields. Since there was less time spent on the gaining of nourishment, societies would advance culturally as the years went. Human interaction was beginning to evolve and change when people first gathered to barter and exchange. 12,000 years ago, man began to domesticate beasts. Some were for protection and others were to ensure their feasts. 9,000 years ago, man smelts, which is refining metal, and for future technology, this would be instrumental. The Fertile Crescent, with its natural irrigation, was the home of the most ancient farming civilization. The Tigris and Euphrates flow through Mesopotamia, quenching the dry lands in what is today's Iraq area. 7,000 years ago, builders brought water to dry fields. Irrigation allowed them to expand their farmlands and yields. Sumerians made the first wheel as a tool for a potter. Their design was altered and used for transportation later. Mesopotamian culture had thriving innovation. Plow, sail, and chariot conceived through their imagination. The zone of the Middle East invented full written language. They bettered mankind by recording and collecting knowledge. 5,500 years ago, women in Egypt brewed beer. It was a method they used to make water stay toxin clear. Egyptians wove papyrus paper to write hieroglyphics. In their system, an icon represents the word it depicts. Elsewhere, there were advanced cultures like in the Indus Valley. That's the land between India and Pakistan currently. There was the Minoan culture on the Greek island of Crete. 1,000 years of harmony with sewers, stone bridges, and streets. On England's heath, Stonehenge was used by Druids, Celtic priests. Their ceremonies of praise taught the rebirth of the deceased. Egypt is united and expands into more lands than before. The wheeled chariot was introduced, changing the rules of war. Worship was made in many ways. To many gods man gave praise, dedicating to deities wondrous structures they'd raised, like Solomon's Holy Land Temple 3,000 years ago. The Phoenician alphabet spreads, from it the West would borrow. The Roman Empire became a viable world power. Siddhartha became Buddha at his enlightenment hour. Self-educated Confucius taught right living through virtues. Greek states, Athens and Sparta, won battles that Persia would lose. The Greeks were able to shift their focus to knowledge and art. Hippocrates knew anatomy and the role of the heart. Plato's academy opened and Aristotle studied. Aristotle taught Alexander the Great after they buddied. Alexander's kingdom spread to the land Iran now sits on. He be king of Macedonia, Persia, and Babylon. The Colossus was built in Rhodes, 100 feet tall in bronze, built of failed invaders' war machines to show they're no one's pawns. 2,300 years ago, Rome began to conquer. They were the area's sleeping giants who'd sleep no longer. The Roman Empire expanded from central Italy. 500 years of warring for lands they governed readily, like Egypt, North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, Syria, Palestine, Asia Minor, France, England, and Greece. In Rome, slaves, criminals, and prisoners fought for entertainment. Gladiators battled man and beast using sword or trident. The Romans built enduring structures, laws, and a government. Their legacy includes money and a system of measurement. Archimedes had developed math for devices like gears. Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus had taught for 3 years. Jesus foretold his crucifixion, achieving destiny. Many think he's a prophet or in God's holy trinity. Parts of the Roman Empire were being attacked by Huns, a warring nomadic culture derived from Mongolians. The Prophet Muhammad fled Mecca and brought back the Quran. 1,300 years ago, Islam's calendar began. Roman control had faded as China's power was rising. The Tang dynasty would take control after an uprising. They would rebuild their broken country and make it powerful. Trade routes with other countries made them rich and knowledgeable. They took power from nobles and gave it to civil servants. These servants had to pass tests in math, law, and world events. The Chinese had printed books 400 years before Europe. This further enhanced the learned culture they'd developed. Their census found 26 cities with 500,000 or more. Around the world, there would be more people than ever before. 1,200 years ago, Baghdad had an astronomy school. Two groups rose to power through terror and destruction so cruel. In Europe, the Viking or Norsemen were raiders from the sea. The Middle East lived in fear of the Assyrian army. Around this time, Mexico would be ruled by the native Toltec. Artisans, builders, and priests, their culture assumed by Aztecs. After hundreds of years, Chinese moved south to a new city. The new, clean, and modern home was ruled by the Sung dynasty. They produced gunpowder, which they strictly used in fireworks. Europe weaponized it, using secrets stolen by the Turks. As the Americas were found by Viking Leif Erikson, cultures like native cliff dwellers would begin to lessen. 1,000 years ago, human impact wasn't as forceful. People felt their connection to nature and were resourceful. The beginning of our human impact is easy to spot if you've ever seen the data laid out to make a plot. Population growth equal to population over time, and until a few hundred years ago, it was a straight line. Now population's increasing at an exponential rate, a doubling factor we need to slow before it's too late. Over many generations, humans drastically changed Earth, but not by giving back, by consuming everything of worth. The attitude became we're stewards, we're entitled to such, bringing the mentality of control to everything we touch. Blind to the fact that the world will never be run on man's laws, Earth is being slashed and devoured by a beast with no claws. The Crusades in Europe brought hundreds of years of holy wars. Ownership of land, politics, and money drove these death tours. The Sung dynasty ruled 500 years, then Mongols arrived. Grandson of Genghis Khan, his legacy of conquest revived. They held all of China, Central Asia, and Russia in parts. They built and guarded a highway so trading with Europe starts. Europeans' lives finally settled just before the plagues. For hundreds of years, Black Death raced through crowded cities in legs. A single 5-year outbreak saw 25 million lives lost. With no known cause or cure, a quarter of Europe paid the cost. The 1500s saw plagues come and go. A revival soon grew. At the same time, across the Atlantic, Incas ruled Peru. Slaves built up a new world in a shameful practice that began. History's seen other slave victims. This time, they're African. The Aztec culture flourished in today's Mexico City, a people so rich in gold they knew nothing of scarcity. Their island capital, accessed by the bridges they construct, had palaces, pyramids, temples, canals, and aqueducts. As Europe began to heal, it underwent a renaissance. Reawakening to knowledge and culture was their response. Europe flourished with the talents of great artists and thinkers. Paintings like the Mona Lisa in Sistine Chapel occurs. In the New World, Cortez was conquering Mexico for Spain. His deep lust for power and greed he never tried to contain. Cortez's thirst for Aztec gold led him to perpetrate a fraud, seizing King Montezuma, though Aztecs welcomed him as God. Cortez took everything the Aztecs were willing to give. He wanted it all, which meant he wouldn't let the Aztecs live. Shakespeare created famous works as London's first theater grows. Stargazing's possible with inventions of Galileo's. 1607, Jamestown settled up north of Pilgrim's Land. Counter to Europe, their goals were just to survive and expand. Mid-1600s Europe continued with new inventions, like steam turbines and better telescopes using reflections. 1665 in England, Hooke's microscope first saw cells. Their purpose was a secret his technology couldn't tell. London plagues in the summer of that year saw many lives lost. The next summer, the city had a bad fire burn across. In the American colonies, life could be stifling. Puritanical condemnation for what they deemed trifling. At this time, Blackbeard was pirating in the Caribbean. Colonialism divides the world for Europeans. In 1725, Catherine of Russia ruled as queen. She became ruler since her husband, Peter the Great, had been. In the mid-1700s, the British held India. Their rule imposed on many nations in a vast area. Humans have not only witnessed but caused evolution. One example starts with the Industrial Revolution, when the unparalleled environmental degradation began to favor pepper moths of darker variation. Before manufacturing, the lighter moths were more profuse, until tree bark became dirty from dark soot smokestacks let loose. The predominant shade of moth then became the darker type, results of another factor besides the filth belched out pipes. Birds hunting pepper moths use eyes that detect color contrast. Dark moths began to blend with the bark, so they were eaten last. We've increased the challenges of survival of the fittest, and on every part of the earth we've changed the rules to this test. Now fit means adapting to a world one species tries to run, with its shrinking habitats and every type of pollution. Trickle down of our activities causing mass extinction and widespread human-induced biodiversity reduction, occurring now at rates 100 times higher than before. History's shown the results of being genetically poor. The steam engines improved by James Watt, a Scottish inventor. Franklin's lightning rod attracted a charge to prevent fires. Revolutionary events changed the course of history when the 13 colonies opposed their rule from overseas. America's war for independence lasted 7 years. When it was over, it was the land where democracy steers. Life got moving with new bicycles and electric motors, and made easier with batteries and refrigerators. America's 1830 Indian Removal Act forced native indigenous people onto remote land tracts. The fearful, ignorant response to difference is oppression, a system of openly imposed measures of aggression. American acquisitions caused the borders to expand, and native peoples were resettled on that rough, unknown land. America was also hosting new types of immigrants, like the Irish when they had had a blight on their potato plants. The California gold rush had brought settlers to the West. Darwin's origin of species theory survives as the fittest. The American women's suffrage movement gained attention from the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention. Escaped slave Harriet Tubman ran the Underground Railroad, a network of homes and safe places runaway slaves were stowed. 300 people were freed over 19 dangerous trips. Tubman was used as a spy to provide the government tips. Abolitionist John Brown killed 5 in retaliation, another spark that would build to the Civil War's creation. 1861 is officially the Civil War's start, and by the war's end, 700,000 souls would depart. 11 southern states planned to separate. Slavery is the basis of their economy was the complaint. 4 years and 2,400 battles later, the North won, demonstrating federal power and slavery was done. Mendel paved genetics foundation unbeknownst in his day. Alfred Nobel's dynamite exploded in a safer way. Elements were arranged in a table by Mendeleev, astounding with the limited information he would have. Lord Kelvin derived a temperature scale without negatives. Alex Graham Bell invented the phone with his initiative. Aspirin was synthesized from the bark of a willow tree. Edison invented the light bulb so at night you could see. Colonial occupiers were now met with contention. Ethiopia overthrew their Italian oppression. 1896 Zimbabwe revolts against the British. They believed a possessed woman got that movement established. Wright brothers flew their plane. That day in Ohio was the start. Planes would change our lives in war, becoming an integral part. In the 1900s, Henry Ford opened his factory. The North Pole is seen. A group starts the NAACP. Einstein worked out his theory of special relativity, and the Titanic wasn't unsinkable as claimed to be. World War I consumed 4 years in the lives of many nations, and it all began with one event, an assassination. Slowly, many countries of the world were drawn into the fight. Dirty trench warfare meant 8 million died in the plight. After the war, a new hopeful chapter was started by Gandhi. His nonviolent civil disobedience worked peacefully. Marie Curie named and studied radioactivity. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in physics and chemistry. The American government's acquisitions left their mark, preserving the wild uniqueness of the national parks. Antibiotic fungi were found in 1928. It's known as penicillin, and doctors use it to this date. The Great Depression starts when markets crash in New York City, reducing many families to homelessness or poverty. The American farmland had become depleted and dry. Called the Dust Bowl, winds blew topsoil, forming dunes piled high. Many nations were pulled into world war for the second time, a 5-year-long affair filled with air raids and heinous war crimes. It would end with 2 bombs of unprecedented destruction, results of the mines of the Manhattan Project construction. The microwave cooks food faster to keep up with busy lives. A change in technology and color TV arrives. Pesticides regulated when pollution kills in PA. Watson and Crick describe the double helix of DNA. In '54, nuclear power becomes a reality. 300 pollution deaths in 1 year in New York City. 1964, the civil rights movement was in full swing. Equal rights for all, preached Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. 1969 was the year that a man walked on the moon. Admire its pristine beauty while squandering Earth's fortune. That year, a river in the United States burned for 8 days, while an oil leak caused death to California's waterways. Earth Day 1970 started something in the nation, 5 years of creating acts to control our degradation. 1978, Love Canal was poisoning children. 3 Mile Island gave off radioactive emissions. Chemical release in India killed 5,000 people. 80s had the radioactive meltdown in Chernobyl. Hole in the ozone forming from our use of CFCs. Alaska's purities stained with the oil from Exxon Valdez. The problems compounded and could no longer go unnoticed. In '92, warning came from thousands of world scientists. With so many billion people on Earth and not enough space, we use finite resources at an ever-increasing pace. Our population's growing, not slowing, at 7 billion. 25,000 starve to death each day, including children. In countries with advanced medicine, nature's circumvented, yet there's great disparity in how it's been implemented. The ugliness of genocide still occurs in modern times. In several places around the world, groups perpetrate these crimes. Warring and hate continue, persecution of others too. Refugee camps swell in border countries, resources are few. Corporations are entities seeking self-preservation. The right path that's unprofitable faces decimation. Led by the expansive empires of overconsumption, down paths that have resulted in ecosystem destruction. Earth's been used and violated for our every desire, made a repository for waste, trash mountains climb higher. The Pacific Ocean swirls 2 Texas-sized garbage patches. Our water problems are deeper than the surface this junk scratches. This reign of chaos that has controlled our world for many years brings corruption, greed, malice, oppression, apathy, and tears. We abandon our search for knowledge and start embracing fear. Our attention's diverted to the truth we don't see or hear. Grown mentally lazy, very little energy is paid from all the years of being told how to think, and we obeyed. Yet ultimately it would be the earth that was betrayed, perpetually overlooked though its glory was displayed. People were designed for earth, it sustains everything we do. When we corrupt and waste away its gifts, we will wither too. Forgetting our position relies on everything below, enables harm to life and the earth, blind to the value they stow. Since humans and other animals can't make food like plants do, plants are crucial, and so is the topsoil from which they grew. Fields are polluted, depleted, blown away, and overused. Our bodies reflect this, but the real problem is never accused. Solutions are engineered for problems after they arise. Abandoning preventative measures has caused the demise. Our brain helps us choose how to respond to the world practically. Our brain controls many body functions automatically. It governs things like hunger, sleep, pleasure, pain, and our senses. This important organ has many natural defenses. Encased in bone, padded by fluid, there is limited access. The blood-brain barrier is protecting its cells from distress. Brain health is vital since most of its cells don't regenerate, and each brain part has a specific function to operate. Brain cells called neurons send impulses with charges they create. Electric signals flash like lightning, fats used to insulate. Our brain is the most elaborate and creative on earth. It forms our life experience, and from it our minds are birthed. How can the brain's billions of neurons create our conscious side? Do neural impulses cause self-awareness, our mental guide? How can an organ produce knowledge of its own existence? Humans think about thinking and ponder life's significance. A reflective mind is a higher level of brain function, so the body's brain separates from the mind at this junction. While the body can be run in a basic way by the brain, we're human because of the consciousness our minds can attain. The body and mind are still under each other's influence. Together they evolve and are changed by life experience. There's a third part of us, and it's able to stand on its own, a part that many cultures over thousands of years have known. The name changes depending upon the context you hear it. This everlasting part of us we call our soul or spirit. Separate from the body and mind, it's our eternal essence. Not visible or obvious, it's known through experience. Science is ill-equipped to accurately discuss the soul. They've weighed and measured, but it's not directly observable. Our soul uses mind and body to decipher its language, and will unite the three parts of our being through its message. When our three parts are in alignment, we're a fine-tuned circuit. Our soul sends our body feelings our mind can interpret. The soul will bring us satisfaction, fulfillment, and balance. Love, joy, health, creativity, and the peace of acceptance. The soul refuses to force itself on our mind or body, which can allow us to drift if its connection gets shoddy. People will then turn their attention to their mind's rhetoric or to overindulging their body with their preferred tonic. Living for the body or mind brings fleeting satisfaction, a life that's spent endlessly searching for the next distraction. Minds are inclined to fixate on illusion and become stuck. The never-ending skewed awareness can make you self-destruct. Fanning the flame of emotion while extinguishing the soul, the mind creates an increasingly unfillable hole. There are problems in our life that without our soul we can't solve. The wrong solution will be applied, and the cycle revolves. It can appear that life is unfair and the world's full of strife. Unhappiness is the result of loss of meaning in life. Large yet limited minds may be the curse on Adam and Eve. Full awareness is blocked by distortion of what we perceive. Unrecognizable to the busy mind that needs weeded, Earth's our Garden of Eden, withered from being mistreated. Humans break life down into parts, attempting to organize. Our classification system helps our brain categorize. Species is the only level that's naturally defined. Fertile offspring's only produced by species of the same kind. The other divisions that we created carry over until our minds call everything outside ourselves nature. Thinking nature is animals, plants, rocks, seas, waves, and weather, feel disconnected, above it all, floating with no tether. Forgetting where we come from and to where we will be going is just one of the powerful illusions the mind is stowing. The overlooked and ignored soul has always had the answer, and can break us from our mindset where we think we're not nature. Like Earth was swirling matter before becoming cohesive, the soul pulls together our fragments so we can fully live. Below the surface, each soul is our own world to be explored. Simply by listening for it, the soul's voice will be restored. It reveals interconnections that are all-encompassing and exposes nature's laws through cycles and seasons passing. Our soul's consciousness is able to change our reality through the difference of its interpretation of what we see. We are powerful, every thought, word, or action we create. So regulate thoughts, choose words, and let your actions demonstrate. Don't waste your energies on negatives like anger or blame. Complaining won't solve problems. If we're stuck, they stay the same. While words are woven to evoke emotions, actions cause change. If you think everything's backwards, support those who rearrange. We have been the cause, and everywhere you look is an effect. If you desire to change that, let all your efforts reflect. We have the creative genius to think us out of this hole. Pure, innovative energy needs the body, mind, and soul. We can point fingers at the big corporations for their greed. Their defense would be that they are only supplying our need. Differentiate between what the mind wants and the body needs. Needs are essential life maintenance, like the need to sleep and feed. We're more than the sum of our body, our tool for soul support. A vehicle needing maintained so a full life you'll exhort. Figure out what's real, distinguish it from man-made distraction. With knowledge of the truth, human games will hold no attraction. When the majority choose purposes higher than the self, we will begin to rebuild instead of depleting our wealth. This ancient garden is poised to be prosperous and expand if we can serve what the earth's giving freely without demand. This book shows science is not the opposite of religion. If you believe in God, science can glorify creation. Science explores the intricate beauty of all that surrounds. In our bodies where immaculate engineering abounds. Both science and religion seek to explain the same questions. The human mind will only grow deeper through their reflections. Like, what is Earth? Why are we here? How long does it all exist? We get glimpses of the answers, so questioning still persists. The validity of Earth history is not for dispute. Faith must equally extend to all things the mind can't compute. 13 billion and 7 days is just a difference in time, but time is incapable of being a dividing line. Einstein's relativity theory shows that time is not fixed. Throughout the universe, relative time expands and constricts. Einstein showed time is related to motion and location. The 24-hour day is an earth and human creation. Any answer that we get from science satisfies the mind and adds to our collection of knowledge gained over time. The scientific method lays a plan that's systematic, to think critically, test and observe something problematic. The answers religion gives satisfies the heart and soul. The unknowable can't be tested. Faith is not rational. Life's evolution rate is environmentally driven. Bursting change is called punctuated equilibrium. The discontinuous rate change we see in evolution is mirrored when societies are changed through revolution. The Renaissance was the punctuated change to the Dark Age. Old beliefs, behaviors, or technology pass like a stage. Individuals lead the betterment of society through the fruits of their body, mind, and soul's creativity. When we alter our surroundings, surroundings alter our genes. We're constructing the future is what the implication means. Peaceful, nurturing environments and practices that heal, feedback to the next generation how they react and feel. To think, act, and speak with love is a human's natural state. Love, applied to negative emotions, will eliminate. The positive changes to society are limitless when we draw from love and the creative powers we possess. Science will always continue evolving and expanding. Theories change over time to keep up with our understanding. Humans are limited by perspective, perception, and mind. Technology improves, breakthroughs occur, theories are refined. Science laws are different, they're proven to describe and predict. Laws have equations formulating the process it depicts. We have laws for gravity, motion, and quantum mechanics, electromagnetics, chemistry, and thermodynamics, astronomy, genetics, mass energy conservation, optics, geophysics, mechanics, gas, and radiation. Theories don't become laws, they're possible explanations for the many effects we observe with hidden causation. Theories are bolstered if they incorporate established laws. Laws can give rise to theories like the universe had a cause. Thermodynamics shows the universe had a starting point, or by now its entropy would have caused it all to disjoint. The Big Bang created matter, energy, space, and time. The first elements were forged then, the explosive force was prime. From an infinitely dense particle all things came to be, expanding into the universe in its entirety. Red shifts show the universe expands like an inflating ball, expanding equally from all points with no center at all. While our solar system is just a speck of the infinite, members of the human race are profoundly significant. We're energy intersecting space, time, body, mind, and soul. Each moment's ripe to be made intentionally meaningful. In a universe of stardust, we're animate energy, searching for our origin story, driven by mystery. Composing the fabric is loosely knit galaxy clusters, radiant from the billions and trillions of stars they muster. From far away, these units appear as a single object. Closer distance reveals many large bodies that don't connect. Each body is a collective unit called a galaxy, where hundreds of billions of stars attract through their gravity.